Hello, myself Lakshman. Today's date is 10 January 2022, and today's Java topic is exception handling in Java. The what is meant by exception? Exception is a problem that is terminate the flow of execution of program, and exception handling is to handle this to handle this exception. Exception handling is a code that is handle the exception arise in a program. To handle exception, there are some methods or there are some analogies to handle this. The number one is try catch block. This is try and catch is basically a uh, keyword, and then final keyword. Final is also keyword in Java. Then throw and then throws. This by using this keyword, we handle the exception in Java. The try and there are two types of exception handling: the checked exception and unchecked exception. The checked exception are those exception which is find out at in a compile time. For example, we writing a code. In the writing a code, we use at that time of exception. This called as a runtime or compile time exception or checked in exception. The exception which is not invoke in a during writing the code, but it is arise uh, from the after the execution display in a console. This type of exception is called as unchecked exception. The example of checked exception is file not found or class not found. This is the example of checked exception. And the example of unchecked exception is arithmetic exception or array out of bound exception. This is the example of unchecked exception. The exception is basically child interface of a throwable class or throwable interface. Now go through how to handle exception in Java. There are some keywords. Firstly, use the try and catch block. If we want to, some code is arise this exception, and this code is provided into the try block, and catch block is used only to handle the exception. The exception arise in our program only if and only if the catch block is handled or also final is handled. But basically the only catch block is handled, the exception arise in our program. Then final is also one type of handle the exception. And then throw keyword. By using the throw keyword, we can't handle the or we don't handle the exception, but we create an exception that is custom exception, or it is also called as user exception. This is create an object of exception. And throws keyword, throw and throw are basically different. The throws keyword is pass on the exception to the another method or another JVM. For example, suppose In main method, in our class, there is one method, and this method is arise an exception, and this exception is throw into the main method. Then main method is responsibility to handle this exception, but main method is also uh, suppose it is not capable to handle this exception, then it is also throw the exception to the JVM, and JVM by default show this exception because we some predefined exceptions in Java available in Java. So this is all about the exception in Java.